This week we cover 5 sections in the Doctrine and Covenants, and let me show you why these are really exciting. I remember 4 years ago when I was talking about Joseph Knight Sr., who Section 12 was given to, and so many people here were descendants of his. Joseph Knight Sr. owned a grist mill, and there were times when Joseph worked for him, and during those times is when he met Emma. And then later, when Joseph was so poor and he was trying to translate the plates, Joseph Knight Sr. would send supplies. He'd send food and paper to help Joseph during that time. Later, he and his family will be baptized. They're part of the Colesville Saints. And Joseph Knight and his family will obey the call later to gather to Kirtland, and they will go and they will leave everything behind that they had built. And then they will be the group that is called to go and settle Zion. He and his wife Polly had a ripple effect of faithful descendants that followed them. So Section 12 was written to Joseph Knight, who wanted to help with the work. And you'll see that so many of these sections are similar. When the Lord is calling people to do his work, he'll say many of the same things. So notice Section 12 and notice what he's saying to Joseph Knight, and then see what you can learn from that. Section 13 is an excerpt from Joseph Smith history. Section 13 contains the words spoken by John the Baptist when he restored the Aaronic priesthood to Joseph and Oliver. The background to this section is that Joseph and Oliver were still translating the plates. And many scholars believe that they were likely translating 3 Nephi 11. And when Jesus came to the Nephites, he introduced himself, met them one by one, and then he talked about baptism and being baptized by proper authority. Truth was being restored, and Joseph and Oliver went into the woods and fervently prayed, and their prayer was answered with John the Baptist coming to restore the priesthood to the earth. And then sections 14, 15, and 16 are to the Whitmer brothers, David, John, and Peter Whitmer. And when you read them, they are very similar. Oliver and David were friends, and he had been writing David, telling him about the translation and everything he was experiencing with Joseph. And then there came a time when Oliver and Joseph needed to find a new location to finish the translation. So Oliver wrote to David, and David invited them to come and stay with his family at the Whitmer farm. You can actually put Whitmer Farm into Google Maps, and you and your family can tour the farm, and you can actually go right into the house, and you can go upstairs where they would have finished the translation. So as you read these sections that are individually to David, Peter, and John, notice how similar they are. You might look at it and say, the Lord is saying the same thing. The Lord is calling them to the work, and he says the same things to those he's calling to the work. So you and your family could look at them and say, all right, what do you think the Lord wants you to notice here? And then section 17 is a revelation to the 3 witnesses. The 3 witnesses are prophesied about in the Book of Mormon, and so this was understood that this was going to happen. And David, Oliver, and Martin Harris all desired to be those witnesses. Section 17 is a revelation to them and what the Lord expects of them if they are to be witnesses. And then after this, they become witnesses. The 3 witnesses had an experience with an angel showing them the plates. And then after that, there were 8 more witnesses where Joseph was able to show them the plates. One thing I like to do is I like to go to the testimony of those witnesses, because sometimes I'll hear teens say something like, well, if I could just see the plates, I would know the Book of Mormon was true. But I actually take them in and I show them, all right, what are the phrases that you would only be able to say if you actually saw the plates? And then they would find phrases like this. And we beheld and saw the plates, or we have seen and hefted. And then I say, okay, now go in and find phrases that you could say if you had a witness of the power of the Book of Mormon and the truthfulness of it. And you find things like this. We know that it is by the grace of God that these things are true. And then I like to have a conversation about the difference between being a witness of the plates and being a witness of the Book of Mormon, especially a witness of the power that this book can have in someone's life. And then I'd ask them which they would choose and why. These witnesses never denied the reality of the plates, even when they fell away from the church. They were always witnesses of the plates. But what we want to be is a witness of the power of the Book of Mormon. So as you go into these sections, talk about what it means to be a witness, and notice what the Lord is doing when he's calling people to his work. He's calling Joseph Knight Sr. just as he's calling David Whitmer, and they will have different roles to play, but the Lord is saying many of the same things to them just as he would say them to us.